Before we get started, just a reminder that you can find all of my available rental properties on my website at markguzman.com. If you own investment property, click on the Owner Services section to see our complete list of services. This episode is sponsored by Lenny Clark with Prime Lending. Lenny Clark is a loan officer specializing in residential home lending. He communicates with you every step of the way, and his honesty sets him apart from the rest. He's able to think outside of the box due to his experience and is able to tailor a loan program to fit your needs. If you can't qualify just yet, not a problem. He will let you know what you need to do in order to be ready. Lanny is also backed by Prime Lending, which is one of the biggest and fastest growing lending banks in the nation. They have simplified the home lending process down to 5 steps. And FYI, step number 5 is to relax and enjoy your new home. So contact Lenny Clark today at 510-964-0620. With 6 professional teams and several Division I college sports teams, the Bay Area sports scene is one of the largest and most vibrant in the country. In the last 60 years, Bay Area teams have combined to win 18 championships and numerous other incredible seasons. With so much greatness, the athletes who made it possible had to be remembered. That led to, in 1980, the establishment of the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame. But BASHOF is more than just honoring sports legends. It's also about giving back to the Bay Area community. Today, our guest is Kevin O'Brien, President and CEO of BASHOF. And he's here to talk about the impact sports has had on the Bay Area culture and how BASHOF strives to get the youth of the Bay Area involved in sports as a way of bettering their lives. Kevin, we're live. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. This is a first for me.
First time doing a podcast?
First time I've ever done a podcast. And
Very
I've heard
cool.
a lot about it, yeah.
Yeah, podcasts are picking up. A lot more and more people are listening to those. I mean, it's very convenient, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. I think it's really kind of a flexible medium, too, you know.
Yeah, and no restrictions. We can do whatever we want.
Exactly. You're not a FCC approved. And
Yeah, exactly.
although I have to tip my hat to the radio guys in this city. We have 2 really good groups. Intercom Radio is top of the line. Top of the line.
Intercom?
Company. Yeah, Intercom, yeah. And of course,
that's where I used to work.
did you?
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's well, I mean, when I was with K Fox in the game. Now they're the game's with CBS now, or CBS got bought out by Entercom, so I guess they're still Entercom. But
Right. It's still Intercom, but it was a hell of a merger for Intercom. But, you know, they do a good job. And Kilness, I think, will come back because KMBR is a 50,000 watt, you know. And it's,
Yeah.
but I like the game. I listen to the game a lot in the morning, especially.
Mm-hmm.
They're less flooded with ads, and I think they're a little bit more creative, I think, and flexible, although the dominant talent in town is still Brian Murphy. I mean, nobody's ever going to equal that guy.
Yeah, how do you see radio going forward in the future?
I think it'll always survive and be an important element. I really do. I just think everybody has to adapt. You know, I get calls all the time because I spent 42 years in television. People say, is TV going to survive? Well, when I look back on my career, you know, we had the biggest change in television, of course, people don't realize this, was satellite. Once the HBO satellite went up, that was a game changer.
I remember that.
That was a game changer because up until then, there was a barrier to entry. There was only so much room, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, on the frequency and the television frequency. And when the satellite went up, that meant you could have 1,000 channels. That was the big change. Of course, color. I went from black and white to color in my career, and then of course you had the proliferation of cable. Cable became huge. Obviously, I mean it became the carrier for 90% of the country. We went from over the air to wired, literally in a 4-year period, and so the competition went from 4 stations to 800. Well, you just have to adapt. You just have to work harder. The problem in television today is the leadership is bankrupt. The leaders of television station broadcasting.
Well, it's very interesting to see what's happened because with the internet coming up and then you have YouTube that's basically, you know, its own medium, right? You have YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, and then you have all these different, I mean, it's really just the internet. So if you see people going to those different apps and platforms to watch television and shows, the cable companies are hurting.
Yeah, it's their turn. It's their turn to get punched in the head a couple times. We went through it in broadcast, and we came out the other side. But we're
Well,
still.
with broadcasting is very interesting though, because I'm starting to notice a lot of people on the radio starting up podcasts on the side.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So podcasting,
Yeah, everyone at the game now is getting a podcast going.
yeah,
So,
because if
Wow.
you think about it, on the radio, you have to tune in to listen.
Right.
Well, then the next step, it seems like they evolved to, well, why don't we just record our episodes and put them up online? And then that's technically our podcast,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But now you have a lot of the various different hosts or radio stations getting into podcast production, and they're doing these high-end podcasts, some really well-funded, elaborate podcasting, and they're coming up with completely different channels. So that might be where the next evolution of radio and broadcasting goes.
Yeah, it's forced survival. I mean, you have to think outside the box. Television stations, my opinion, will still be around, but the heads of these different broadcast groups are just lazy, and they all they do is complain. They don't go out and make any sales calls. They don't go out and tell the story about television stations are still the dominant medium in each market. You know, you can have as many radio stations, podcasts, Facebook, but still more people will watch the 10 o'clock news tonight on KTVU than anything in the market. Well, you got to go out and tell the advertisers this. There's a lot of people waiting for retirement, just hoping to get to that point. I've been trying to get back into television for 12 years, and I've been outed, I think, because I scare these big shots. Because in my career, and I was a big shot once, I worked, I put in an 18-hour day, 6 days a week. And I scare these people. They don't want to do that. They don't want to work that hard. They want to sit in their big offices and complain and call each other and talk about how bad business is. Well, get up and do something about it.
Yeah, they've become very comfortable in their positions. And it's also comfortable because I believe television gets about $80 billion a year in advertising revenue.
Yeah, that's about right, yeah.
And
then,
yet
of course, now we have the cable paying us, too.
Mm-hmm.
They're paying us compensation for the signal.
Yeah, so when you
and
have
that's
that
in the billions.
Yeah, and when you have that kind of money coming in and you continue to have loss of viewership because people are going more online or to other mediums, I mean, I guess there's no innovation. There's no motivation for them to innovate because they're still getting the ad revenue.
Yeah, but their revenues have fallen dramatically. I mean, if you look at the Fox broadcast group, which is probably the largest broadcast group in the country, their revenue is way down, because they're very poorly run. I mean, if Rupert Murdoch ever knew the literally hundreds of millions of dollars he was not getting, but he doesn't understand the medium, and the people working for him are not working very hard, and they're not giving him the straight skinny. It's all excuses. It's all it is. Oh, business is down. We have all these competitors. Instead of saying, we're going to start making calls, we're going to start doing, this would be very easy for a TV station to do podcasts. It would be a snap for a beautiful facility like KTVU.
Well, they have the talent to do it.
And they have the talent. And they could, podcast to me is like that fruit in the refrigerator that doesn't spoil. It can hang around for a long time and doesn't stink.
Yeah. I had people that listened to a podcast I recorded like a year ago.
Of course, yes, right, exactly right. Yeah, it's like the old suit in the closet. You pull it out and it feels comfortable. And you can do it on your time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not available tonight at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, you're not going to be able to watch the local news. Now, you can go online and watch it on their websites. But I think that, too, is fading. I kind of see podcasts as kind of a very important aspect of availability and listenership in the years ahead. I think it has a lot going for it.
Yeah, it's very interesting, too, because if you look at historically radio and television, you have gatekeepers, right? The people that tell you how they want their shows done, how they want certain things produced, and the content.
Correct.
Podcasting, it's anyone's game.
Because it's not regulated.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form.
Do you feel podcasting will ever one day be regulated?
Oh, we are regulated. Television?
No, podcasting.
Oh, podcasting? Oh, I think the government will stick their nose in eventually and ruin it. You know, I think that's kind of, they see that as the kind of the, you know, moral keeper of sensitivities of the public, I think. I mean, look at one of the reasons that Hulu and those people are going crazy is that they can put a show on with just about anything in it, shocking, and you know, people react to that, whether it's murder, mayhem, sex, nudity, or whatever. People are going to, no matter what they say, people are going to be drawn to that. We can't do that on over-the-air television. We are restricted in all kinds of ways.
So what do you think over-the-air television needs to do to adapt?
Well, you know, I think first of all, we have to figure out a way to have less commercials on the air. We really do. We've been going to more and more commercials. Like if you, as an example, and I consider Channel 2 and Channel 4 here really not local stations per se. I see them as a service, audio video service, just like AMC or Turner Classic Movies. I mean, we get more audience than them, but I think that they're our competitors, sure. If you watch AMC as an example, I love old movies. It's unwatchable after a while. I have a game where I flip out and I wait and I flip back in, and 8 out of 10 times I flip back in, I go back in, and they're in a commercial break. It's unbelievable. And they got to find a way to reduce the amount of ads and increase the revenue. That's a tough thing to do, but we don't get out and really, the people in the business don't really get out and sell the medium other than the salespeople themselves. When I ran Channel 2, everybody had to make sales calls. Dennis Richmond, the engineer, everybody had to be involved in sales. Because if you don't make the money, there's no reason to be there.
Now, what were these sales calls? What did they entail? I mean, were they calling for ad revenue?
Yeah, going out and visiting advertisers, agencies, advertisers, owners of companies. The problem is, in our industry today and over-the-air television, we don't go to the chairman of the companies, of the agencies, or chairman of McDonald's and say, listen, social media doesn't really work. In my opinion, social media is a waste of money. They're getting a huge amount of money, and I don't think it works. My feedback from advertisers is they're disappointed with it because it's intrusive. You know, you're trying to get on the air to do something proactive, whether it's contact your girlfriend or look at a new story that just broke. And you have to, the first thing that comes up is the ad with skip the ad in 10 seconds. I'd love to know how many of those ads are skipped. And social media is so, there's so much clutter. I mean, when you go to a story on social media, you got to go through 8 or 10 different sales pitches or illustrations or font styles, boxes of one thing or another till you get to the meat of the story.
Yeah, that's why it's becoming tougher every day to keep getting your content in front of other people because they're completely flooded with just all kinds of content.
Yeah.
I mean, an interesting fact is we make more content today as a society in 48 hours than the beginning of time to like 2005.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That is incredible. That's an interesting statistic.
Yeah.
I mean, when I go on social media, of course, and you know, it's mind-boggling. You know, my eyes can't I guess I'm too old. It just can't take everything in. And my point is, I think it always has a place, but it's getting more than its fair share. And the invisible hand of economics says that if any one entity gets more than its fair share, someone or something will come into the marketplace and bring it into level it out and bring it into a more appropriate share of the revenue, right? And that's what happened to television. I mean, when I came in the business in '68, the station I started out in Kansas City was doing, the TV stations were doing 98% of all the advertising dollars. Radio got some, and that was it. And then little piranhas came along to eat at it, like cable and Hulu and all these cable channels and podcasts. I mean, you're getting sponsors. And so you really have to take your game up. If you just sit back, it's combat, really. If you sit back in combat, you're going to get shot in the ass.
Mm-hmm. Well, wouldn't you say that's a natural progression of every medium? Because if you look at radio when it first started, you had basically one channel. Then you had multiple channels. Television came along, again, only a few channels. And then it got to a point where you had 1,000 channels. Everything just keeps getting cluttered as more and more people jump onto the medium.
Correct.
Internet, remember when AOL came out, everyone is looking at AOL and just various things that AOL provided. Then you start expanding out to multiple websites, and then it just gets cluttered.
Yeah, the search engines, I mean, they just came out of nowhere, you know? I mean, they just, again, bringing the market more into balance, right? As far as television is concerned, which is my area of expertise, that's about it. There's not going to be any more. I mean, the last cable channel that I can remember was Decades that came in. But there's not going to be any more because you can't survive with any more. In other words, there are too many animals eating, you know, at the porridge right now, and there's not enough for everybody. So I think you've seen the last of any expansion in cable, which to me includes over-the-air broadcasting.
Yeah,
I think the same is true with radio too, by the way.
Yeah, and cable it's very interesting because they have the money and the funding to be able to convert and adapt into the newer mediums.
Right.
Right.
Well, they double dip. People pay them every month, and they sell ads too. And what was so funny about the cable guys, they objected to paying stations, you know, reverse compensation for the product that they were stealing from us. Mm-hmm. They objected to that. But they were doing the very same thing while rejecting it from us. They were getting money from the public, right, for their monthly cable bill, and they were selling the inventory of their shows. Well, we now have a dual stream. We have their compensation to us for stealing our signal, and we sell ads. So that, again, is an example of a change that made television more vibrant. Now, the third thing is, of course, was when the government stepped in and said and realized that we needed more spectrum, right, for mobile, right? Mm-hmm. They just keep coming up with more and more additives and, you know, different elements that you can get on mobile. And so they went to the broadcasters and said, turn your stations in. We'll pay you hundreds of millions of dollars for that. And then they would take that spectrum and use it. So now there are fewer. I think in this town, though, I'm guessing, I think there are 2 or 3 less television stations today than 2 years ago. That just went away. Well, they were making some money, and that money's got to go somewhere, hopefully to the broadcasters. So that's another change that has made, I think, over-the-air TV more attractive. We have less competitors now within our own medium.
Yeah. So you've obviously had a long career in entertainment.
Yeah.
At what point did you get involved with the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame?
That's a good question. I bought a TV station in Providence. You
bought a TV station?
I did, yeah. That was my dream my whole life, to be a licensee. And I had saved up enough money to buy a television station. I looked around. And
That's awesome. You don't hear many people these days.
Yeah, I own my own station. Channel 6 in Providence.
You still own it then?
No, I wish. ABC affiliate. I bought it in 2006. So you know what happened.
Yeah.
By 2009, the economy in Rhode Island absolutely collapsed. As a matter of fact, during that huge economic recession we had, other than Mississippi, no other state got more damaged or had greater losses than Rhode Island. And I'm sitting there as an individual owner, and I lost $12 million on that whole deal. and I put the station finally into receivership. I was so exhausted from it, I didn't want to go through bankruptcy. And I just was a big boy about it and took my lumps and moved on. So after that, I had been involved with Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame for years. I never missed a banquet. I was very good friends with one of our former presidents, Tom Martz, who was there a very long time and was a great friend of mine and a very, very strong guy in the community. And I was working with him, helping him, and then he got sick. And the board asked me to work with him to learn the business, and then they asked me if I'd like to be the president. And I've always been interested in sports. I wasn't doing anything. I was invigorated about it, and I've been there over 6 years now. But at the end of this year, my contract's up, and I'm 75 now. I'm gonna, I think, wake up one morning with nothing to do. That's my dream.
You're gonna retire?
Yeah, I'm gonna retire. Yeah, I want to wake up and say, gee, I think I can read a book today, or sleep late. I think it's time. I've been working steadily since I'm 12. So that's 63 years. I think that's enough.
It might be a little hard though, because
that's what my wife said.
Yeah,
that's what my wife said.
So I'm the same way. Like, you work a lot of hours because when you find something that you're very passionate and that you love to do, it's really not work. And
Correct.
It's very easy to put in 18-hour days. But I've gone through days where 2-3 weeks straight of 18-hour days, and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna take 4 hours off, and I'm going crazy.
Yeah,
after
I know.
4 hours. So I would imagine you're probably gonna work on a different project after. You should get into podcasting.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm smart enough. But it's funny that you bring that up. I couldn't wait to go to KTVU in the morning. I used to I drove the staff crazy. I used to get there some mornings 3 and 4 in the morning. I just couldn't sleep. I'd be so excited about it, and I loved it so much. I mean, I was one of those lucky people that walked into a TV station in 1968 and walked out of my last TV station in 2011 and loved every second of it. I mean, I just thought it was the perfect business for me. It was creative. It was demanding. And with my ADD, things changed so fast. There'd be a big news story would come in, and you'd have to change the entire focus of the station. You'd lose some advertisers. You have to go get new ones. It just appealed to my desire to crank it out and to be involved in a creative effort with a lot of very cool people. And I know exactly what you mean. And I went into, I wouldn't say a depression, but I spend a lot of time wondering why I don't get back into the medium that I was really good at it. I mean, every station I ever ran, I always took it to number one. And I was especially proud of my work at KTVU, of course.
Now, do you feel you were better on air or behind the camera?
I was never on air.
Station?
I was never on air. I had a face for radio. Okay. I was never on the air. I was always in management. I mean, I started out as a trainee, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do specifically inside of a TV station, but I knew I wanted to be in there. First second I walked into a TV station, I lit up. It was just something about it that I really liked. Of course, I'm also an amateur musician, and I do a music show, by the way. I should put it on a podcast. I do a music show 2 times a year at a Bimbo's. I get about 350 people show up for it.
Very cool.
And I sing songs.
That's Bimbo's 365 Club, right?
Yeah.
Right on Columbus.
Beautiful club. Beautiful place. If you've never been in it, folks, that is the most beautiful nightclub in the country. And I do a music show. I bring in local talent. I sing between 12 and 13 songs. I got a 15-piece orchestra. I mean, it's a big time. We serve a meal, open bar. It's great fun. And the music is 60s, 70s, and 80s. We don't go past 84. And boy,
you don't go past 84?
No, we don't go past 84.
Why?
Well, starting at 84, in my opinion, the music started getting unintelligible. I didn't know what they were saying. And there were occasional people that I liked. I liked Eminem. I think he was the only rapper that I ever liked.
I just dropped a new album last week.
Yeah, I know. I heard it. Yeah. I liked his music, but generally, that's what I grew up with. The Beach Boys, Elton John, James Taylor, Buffett, words you understand, things you can dance to, I did go. It's kind of a funny story. I took my children, my grown children, this was years ago, to see some horrible, really, what'd you call it, acid rock or whatever it was. This big group, can't think of the name of it, in Kansas City, where my children were at the time, when they were like 16 and 18. And it was in the big arena there, and I went in with them. And I had great seats because I knew a guy in radio there, and he gave me great seats. And I remember the speakers were huge black speakers, about 14 feet to my right, and we were right there, maybe the fifth row. Half the guys had no shirts on, you know. And after 10 minutes, I said to my children, I'll meet you at gate 12. I got to get out of here. That was the gate we came in. So I went up and I walked out into through gate 12 to where the concessions were. And there were two guards that had checked my tickets, and one guy gave $5 to the other. They said we had a bet that you wouldn't last 5 minutes. Because I was the oldest guy there. And the music was so loud. I mean, and nothing seemed to make any sense, although the kids seemed to know. It was more like listening to Hawaiian music in a different octave, you know, screaming. So I'm a guy stuck in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, the punk rock scene is very different. And I think it's just, we had some filmmakers here, and they did a documentary about East Bay Punk and the Gilman Club over in Berkeley. And if you go back and watch those old videos, and a lot of punk rock today is even the same thing, you see a lot of teenage kids really into it.
Yeah.
And it's just wild, just a ton of screaming. You can't understand what they're saying, but everyone's having a blast. Everyone's having a good time.
Yeah, and it always amazes me when I see it. But, you know, then again, my father would yell down from upstairs in the 60s when I was listening to the Beach Boys, mind you. He'd say, turn that shit off, right? I mean, to him, that was like grotesque music. Today, it's considered, you know, very calm and very, you know, melodic. But my father thought it is. So I think it's a generational thing. I really do. But with BASHOF, my time there has been great fun. We've done a lot of good things.
Now, how long has the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame been around?
It was started in 1979 by Lou Spadia. Lou Spadia ran the 49ers for years. I think he was there over 30 years. And when the Morabito family sold the team to Eddie DeBartolo and family, the Morabitos left and Lou left. And he had been the president of the team. And he had this dream of what he called completing the circle, raising money through recognizing athletes, great athletes in the Bay Area. And by doing that, by recognizing them, raising money, and use that money to help kids play sports. He saw it as a 360 degree, get other kids to get interested in sports and get them into the sporting world, and they too could aspire to greatness. And it was a terrific formula, and it's worked brilliantly. I mean, 39 years, we have 175 inductees, which is a lot. We have given over $4 million out to kids. When I joined BASHOF, I changed it from helping kids play sports to helping at-risk kids play sports. I wanted to give money to basically minority children to play sports. I mean, I didn't want to give any money to St. Ignatius. They have facilities that look like the New York Giants, you know. I want to give money to Oakland Tech and schools that are in challenged areas.
Yeah, it's amazing some of the facilities built by these private schools.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And, you know, listen, they have the right to do it. They're great schools. I mean, SI and Sarah, I mean, those are great schools. Marin Catholic, a lot of people give a lot of their money to those schools, you know, in endowments. And they have the absolute right to do that. The public schools, though, they have to battle talk about poor management. I can't think of a city worse managed than Oakland as an example. I mean, I worked there for almost 20 years.
Well, you see that across the board with a lot of school districts that are having to cut back programs left and right.
It's incredible.
So the fact that you're able to, how many millions?
Four. Over 4 million, yeah.
Yeah. Over the years to have kids play sports is amazing. Yeah,
it is amazing, and it's been consistent. Nonprofit is getting more and more challenging, though. I know that the the horrible turn down, the economic disaster we had from 9 until 13, 14, that changed nonprofit forever. Up until then, companies would establish a budget for community relations and for local charities. And they didn't really check it or care where it went as long as it was spent. And the people made a reasonable effort to spend the money wisely. Now, the chairmen of companies want to know, why are we spending this amount of money? What percentages of it do we give away? What do our competitors do?
And what's our return, right?
What's our return? You took the words out of my mouth. What are we getting? What are we getting in return for this? Because things changed in this country in 2008 when the doo-doo hit the fan. And so it's a little bit more challenging, but we have a lot of good partners, Channel 4, Entercom Radio, City National Bank, PG&E has been. I just want to say something about PG&E. I have been calling on PG&E for 6 years. I have never met a more dedicated group of people in my life in every area of that company. That is a great company. I think all of this recent bad news, and we're asking a lot of a company.
You're the third person I hear say that about PG&E.
No, they're great. They give an awful lot of money out. And, they work hard. But, when you have an infrastructure, if you were to take the pipes under the state of California that P&G are responsible for, I heard, it would go around the world like 4 times. I mean, one of these things is going to blow, and there's going to be fires, and they're just a whipping boy. Those people work very hard. They don't like it when something that their business has caused a fire, and it pains them. That's the thing I notice. It really pains them.
Well, the thing that we all tend to forget is that these big companies, a lot of the really bad decisions are made from top management. Most of the people working at these companies are just everyday people. They want to do good at their job, and they're trying to do good at their job.
Well, I think that's well said. I mean, everybody wants to make more money, and the people that run these companies, they've gotten there through hard work, and they want to make their fair share. And a lot of it is budget cutting. It's like we talked about the high schools. I mean, I remember here at Oakland High with that lunatic Asian lady that was head of the school board and head of education. And then they made her the mayor. I forget her name now. Kwan. What did she spend? $4 million? Yeah. She spent $4 million, I think, on her offices. While the high schools, the kids were having to go to use the bathrooms on the half hour. Boys at 9, girls at 9:30, because the bathrooms didn't work. I mean, it's kind of outrageous, and I think there's an awful lot of mismanagement in it. I think.
Well, have you seen Ben Carson's $39,000 dining room table?
Oh yeah, I know.
In his office.
Yeah.
Well, in fairness,
it's a perfect example of
his wife picked it out. In fairness,
yes.
Well, that is a problem. But anyway, I mean, I think that I know we do a really good job. I'm leaving at the end of the year, so if anybody out there wants to be the president and CEO of Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame, come on over and visit. We've been very lucky. Clinton Riley, who's a major real estate magnate, has been very generous to us in the last 6 years, which has helped. He's really been quite generous. He's a great man. And he and his wife, Janet, they have the Bay Area Scholars. They started the clinic by the Bay, which has been hugely successful, treating thousands of people a year that couldn't afford medical care. I think they are the 2 most generous philanthropists in our wonderful area here. They're terrific. So they've been very helpful to us. But another thing I'd like to mention, we're very proud of the fact, and I am especially personally, because some people on my board thought it was a bad idea. When I was at Channel 2, I got my company, Cox Enterprises, a wonderful company, to put a lot of money into the Giants when the Giants were first sold by Bob Lorry. And so I was the owner representative for Cox, which was really great fun, right? And so I have always been a big Giants fan, wanted to see them succeed, although the current situation is beyond disastrous.
We had some amazing years, though.
They had some amazing years, but somebody didn't get the memo. And the memo was, don't tell me what you did for me yesterday. Tell me what you're doing for me today. Right? Believe me, Greg Nimitz runs Entercom. The David Fields, who owns the company, doesn't give a shit what he did last July. What did you do for me this month? It's the way business is, right?
True.
I don't think it's true. It's definitely not true with the Giants. I mean, they're still running. They constantly run all these highlights. You watch a game, they're going back, they're on 10, 12, 14. Well, the team is going to lose another 92 games. You know, that you can only pull the rabbit out of the hat every a certain amount of time. You just can't. The fans, I think, are smarter than to fall for this.
I was just at the Giants game a few weeks ago, and my buddy is a member of the Gotham Club there, which is a pretty neat place to go to. They have a restaurant.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, very cool. And so, went to the game with him, and it's surprising to see how empty the stadium was. So many empty seats.
A lot, yeah.
I mean, they were playing against the Diamondbacks too, but.
Well, I mean, that was a big series. I was kind of shocked too. I went to the Atlanta game the other night. They announced 34,000. I mean, if there were 34,000, they counted the birds
too.
Yeah, you go to that game.
Yeah.
If there were 12,000 people, there was a lot. So I mean, it's a bit of a scam, and I think the fans are onto it, and they just.
Well, baseball also has the issue of every year their viewership drops.
True. That's why they tried to put these rules in about moving the game along 30 seconds for the pitcher to make his next pitch, and so on and so forth, because the ratings were going down. I think the sports, I think NFL football is in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble.
More trouble than the MLB?
Oh, I think so. I think they have huge problems. I know they have huge problems. I won't watch them anymore. I did not watch this weekend. It was tough, but I didn't watch.
What's the reason why?
Well, because of taking the knee thing. It's just absurd. I think it's an example that these players didn't go to school. They didn't attend class. Because their logic is totally disoriented. If they're upset with the fact, and rightly so, that the police are killing, white policemen are killing black citizens, I think that's horrible. But you don't take a knee for the national anthem. You go picket the police department. You go down and you picket the chief of police office. You don't pick out an area that is so sensitive and so important to all of us. And by the way, if there's another major war, like Desert Storm, and the same number of people will get killed, for the first time in our history, there'll be more people of color murdered or killed in combat than Caucasians. So these people are taking the knee and insulting all of these African American and Hispanic people that have given their lives for the country. Well, these players, this is nothing but a show. Kaepernick didn't do this to do anything about police violence. That's a bunch of crap. He did it because he realized that he wasn't going to get signed. So this was a way to force it and to give him a cause, to put him in the limelight and force a team to pick him up.
Do you think he's got a good case though against the NFL? Because the lawsuit that he filed against the NFL, the judge determined there was, I believe, enough evidence to where it can move forward into trial, because the NFL was trying to squash it. And what the lawsuit states is that there were enough NFL owners that gathered together to conspire against Kaepernick to not re-sign him.
Well, you only need to prove that at least two teams were talking to each other not to do it.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Just two?
Well, remember that the NFL and Major League Baseball, they have an exemption. They can conspire on anything. I forget exactly what the legal term is. Tired today. I'm not going to do very well with this, but I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I don't think they conspired. I think what they did was talk, not about money, but about Kaepernick's ability to win when he needed to. I mean, I know a lot of these owners. It's all about winning. When you're inside of a building where there's a lot of losing going on, you can feel the stress in the building. I mean, that's what professional sports is. There's nothing to do with you're giving money to Sister Mary's organization. It has to do with winning games. And I believe that the main reason that Kaepernick was not signed by any team is that he can't win when he needs to. I think that's been his history.
There's an argument for that. He did struggle with the Niners that final
Yeah.
year.
And I think there were other games where he did it. And I don't think he had what these guys are looking for. Now, if they did conspire against the guy, that's going to be tough to prove. But in my opinion, the logic of it is what disturbs me. I'm a veteran. I am insulted that these gentlemen would do that. Because remember, and these gentlemen are African American. More money has been spent by our government to help African Americans since 1964 than any other minority organization or people that ever came to this country. And it's in the billions of dollars. And how these guys can say that they have been in some way treated poorly. I mean, what are those guys averaging in pay? You know, the whole issue is white police officers killing African American young men. The focus should be on the police department, not on the national anthem.
Yeah, I think the whole idea behind kneeling for the national anthem, though, is being that they're in the spotlight in the nation on national television, right? So they're bringing awareness to a certain situation at this, in front of millions of viewers, and I think that's where that was the ultimate goal with that.
Well, see, that to me, that's too bad. That's sad, because as I said before, I think it was done originally by Kaepernick to bring attention and force somebody to sign him, force the team to sign him, because he had become a legendary leader in this area. So it's a shame. It's a shame that you insult the flag of our country, rather than they would have gotten just as much, almost as much, in my opinion, publicity if they'd gone and picketed the police department downtown San Francisco.
So talking about leadership, what you just mentioned, I mean, how does the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame instill leadership in kids growing up these days?
Well, we use a lot of the former inductees to come to different functions and be with kids. And I want to put in a plug. I think Vita Blue is a blessing for the community. Vita Blue is the most engaged celebrity I have ever seen in any market that I've ever worked in. He is tireless in working to help this community be a better place. I'm stunned by the amount of work he does, good work. He's always available. He always makes himself available. He's just great. And I think Plunkett is in that class as well. Jim Plunkett, I think, and Owen Nolan, I think the hockey player. There are certain guys that are really great. But the point I was going to make before is I'm really proud of BASHOF and my board, because we kind of stuck our neck out and we gave Barry Bonds his first big award. People were saying, oh, he's never going to get into the Hall of Fame, and the Giants are shying away from him. So, a number of years ago, we brought him into our Hall of Fame. So we were sort of the leaders in that, and the believing in him, and brought him into the Hall of Fame. And so we were 2 or 3 years ahead of the Giants and way ahead of Cooperstown.
You think he gets into Cooperstown at all?
I think he will. I do. I think he will eventually, because I think that whole issue is I think people have sort of put it away, locked it up. Because there were so many guys, juicing. It's kind of hard to tell who did what. But I mean, how many home runs would the guy have hit if he hadn't have taken?
Yeah, exactly.
Juice?
And if they were
40 less, I mean,
Yeah, and if they were juicing, they're juicing with professionals that know how to coach them. I spent a little bit of time following the bodybuilding world, right? And these professionals that they're juicing every single day to
every day.
Build, and the amount of, but even with juicing, the amount of work that they have to put in to get their bodies to be like 250 pounds at 3% body
Right.
fat is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I'm a very big fan of bodybuilding.
Yeah, Mr. Olympia competition
I know it
starts
starts
today
today,
or
I think, or
tomorrow.
tomorrow. Yeah,
Yeah, it's this weekend.
in Las Vegas. I've always threatened to go to that. I built a beautiful gym in my house. I mean, I'm really into working out, and I enjoy bodybuilding. And I read all the magazines, Flex and Muscle and Fitness, which is now, by the way, combined into
Mhm.
one magazine. I don't know if you noticed that. That's business is not good. Um, and it always amazed me that Arnold Schwarzenegger became the governor, and nobody ever mentioned the fact that the guy juiced more than anybody.
Yeah.
And then he had a couple of heart operations. The downside of all of this is that eventually Barry Bonds is going to have heart problems.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just inevitable.
Yeah, I think with Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day, the type of steroids and drugs you had back then were not the best. So they were you couldn't do too much of them because
Right.
they were like horse tranquilizers,
They were,
right?
yeah, I know.
But
Right.
nowadays, it's amazing. I mean, to the point where there's some bodybuilding coaches out there that have their own labs where they create their own underground drugs to
Right.
give to their own athletes.
Right.
And you could tell some of the athletes that have the bad drugs and then some that have pharmaceutical grade. But then there's also the protocol, right? There's certain ways you can take certain drugs. And when you're combining one drug with a different type of drug, there's a whole protocol and science behind how you're supposed to take it. And I know that there are ways to where you can pass these drug tests just by knowing how long it takes for certain drugs to come out of your system for testing.
Yeah, I mean, they all have their own doctors. They get tested every month. And you're right.
So imagine a professional ball player, they're not going to be they're not going to be buying drugs from some dude at the gym.
Correct. I mean, it was a carefully planned thing. And the problem is you can't say, well, we'll let them do a little bit of it. I mean, either you do it or you annihilate it completely, eliminate it. But
Yeah,
I think Barry's going to get in eventually. And I knew Pete Rose very well when I ran a station in Cincinnati, and I'm still good friends with Johnny Bench, who in my opinion is the greatest baseball player of all times. Maybe Willie Mays a little bit better, but I was great friends with Pete, and I'd go to the track with Pete. People have to realize that Pete should be led into the hall because he has that's a mental problem. That doesn't make him a bad guy. It's like people with mental health. We now recognize it as a disease.
Mm-hmm.
Putting juice in your body is not a disease. That's an endeavor. But with Pete Rose, there was a disease. I mean, he couldn't control himself. He had something in his body, in his mind, that many of the people that are inveterate gamblers can't help themselves. And I think we have to recognize that, just like we recognize people that are homeless for mental health versus people that are homeless for not mental health. People that have mental problems don't want to be there, but they can't. It's beyond them to help themselves. And I think that's the thing with Pete. Pete just had some sort of chromosome where I'd sit with him and he'd say, I'll bet you the next person through that door is a female or whatever. I mean, there was something in his brain that he just had to have that action. Same with people that do drugs. I mean, we realize now that it's a mental challenge. And I think Pete Rose to have him not in the hall, I think is a shame because, boy, there was never a more exciting ball player than that guy and more dedicated to the game. He just had a mental problem.
Now, BASHOF doesn't have an actual location.
No, we don't.
Correct?
That was a great decision that was made a long time ago when Lou started. Lou started in conjunction with the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce. It was co-located and they were partners. And his idea was to have a hall with no walls. Because
How did that come about?
Well, when you go out and look for property and you find how expensive it's going to do to build it, and then you figure out how many people are going to come to the museum. The San Diego Museum is the best in the world, and it's gone bankrupt. Because one of the problems I think you have is like take NFL Films. NFL Films, if you have a charity, they don't care if you have a charity. If you use 3 minutes of their video, like my dream to have a hall would be to have the ability of people walk up to Joe Montana's plaque and have the capability of putting your phone up to it and activating it, and up on the screen comes all of the highlights of his career. You know what that would cost? It would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. NFL Films doesn't give anything to anybody free. So, I mean, you'd never be able to make enough money to cover it.
So you're saying that would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars just in rights to pay to the NFL?
Correct. Just for the video.
Not in the technology.
No, just the video, the property rights, copyrights to that tape. NFL Films. You know how profitable the NFL Films? I mean, it's just unbelievable amount of money. And, you know, they have a right to protect it. But one of my gripes is that I think they should be way more sensitive to charitable organizations as far as the usage of videos. But we decided that it was just too expensive and the money would be going to the brick and mortar rather than to the kids. And so we have this beautiful area between terminals 1 and 2, which is our wall of fame.
And this is at the San Francisco
San
airport.
Francisco SFO. I want to thank San Francisco Airport, the airport board, people there for being our partners for all these years. They have been fantastic. And every year, our 5 inductees, if we have 5, those plaques go up and the oldest 5 come off. And so we always have fresh plaques. And you're up there for generally 5 to 6 years. And it's beautiful and it's informative. And
what happens to the old plaques once they get taken down?
The old plaques had to go because United, they were these huge trios. You know, they were just these gigantic types of presentation, big wooden structure, and they would just. And United wanted, and all airlines want to get that stuff out because they had to change their terminals to make it internet and computer friendly. And it had to go. And I bought that. I understood. Because these kiosks were huge. They're 6 feet high. And one of the problems with them, as people got more and more dependent on a computer for communications, we were the only area in there was 1 or 2 in every gate. They would pull the plug out and they would charge their computer and the lights would go on.
So they turn off your kiosk.
Yeah. So we really, I agreed with, I think United treated us pretty poorly. I'll go on record, but that's true ever since they were bought by this other airline, but by Continental. But I'm very happy with what the SFO provides to us. I think it's a great public service, recognizes these great athletes, and I'm very proud of it.
What are the requirements that you have for an athlete to be enshrined?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's all spelled out. I mean, it has to be, you know, we get lots of people. If you want to have a great athlete recognized and on the ballot, all you have to do is just go to www.bashof.org and you know, put in or send us to 465 California Street, Suite 806, San Francisco. Send us the background of the information of this particular athlete. But what we get is my cousin was the greatest linebacker in the history of Oakland Tech. Well, you know, you have to have won a significant honor in your field sports and sports endeavor to be even considered for to be in the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame.
Now, do you have to play with a Bay Area team, or you just had to be from the Bay Area?
Both. If you were from somewhere else and you played for a Bay Area team, you qualify. If you were born here and played for a team, you're qualified. And if you were born here and played for another team, another city, you were also qualified. So there's 3 ways to it.
Now, do you have college and professional?
Yep. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What are you seeing in the college realm?
Well, you know, one of the problems that we have in our market is that there's no women's professional teams. So the women that get in
We were
are the
just talking
women
about
that,
this before we went live.
yeah, right. We were talking about this. The women, I want to have more and more women. As a matter of fact, in my 6 years, we've had a woman inductee in 5 of the 6 years. Some people say you should have more. Well, according to our rules, you have to have won an Olympic gold medal, you've had an MVP, a World Series, batting championships, been to the Super Bowl, the Pro Bowl. I mean, you have a very careful formula about who gets in and who doesn't. Because there'd be 1 million people on the ballot if we took every great linebacker from every high school that ever lived, right? You have to be a Keena Turner or, a Harris Barton to get in, and it's carefully done. We send a ballot out every year to about 250 bloggers. I'll make sure you guys get on the list now, and everyone votes on the ballot, and then we take a look at the returns. We meet and we decide what would make the best class. And I think we've generally hit the ball out of the park. I don't think there's one member of this organization that doesn't deserve to get in. So it's fun. And I think it's important. I mean, our banquet is one of the largest banquets held
How many
all
people
year.
do you get at the banquet?
900 people.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, about 900. We have to have it at the Westin St. Francis. It's the only room big enough. And, and rightly so. I mean, last year's class, you had Matt Cain, Harris Barton, Tim Hardaway, Brandy Chastain, and, of course, John McVeigh. That's a heck of a class. And, of course, we had Dusty Baker and Barry Bonds, and you can go on. And my favorite, which was Kerry Walsh Jennings, I fell in love with her. What a gal. What a terrific. And so was Brandy Chastain. She was sensational.
So you feel we need more women's sports here in the Bay Area?
Yeah, there's only 2 women right now that qualify for the board in this whole market, and that's Tara Vanderveer at Stanford and Natalie Coughlin from Cal, the great swimmer.
So how do we get more women's sports in the Bay
Professional. Well, that's a good question. You got to ask the mayor on that one. I don't know why this market doesn't have right now 2 or 3 special. Maybe I don't know WNBA. I don't understand it. Chase. Have you been over to see that construction on the Chase?
A WNBA team seems like the most logical
Doesn't
thing.
it? Yeah, you're right, Sam.
Well, especially with how, Steph Curry's becoming a huge champion of women's sports.
Correct.
You'd think
Correct.
Maybe they could throw their weight behind that once Chase
I
opens.
think if Curry took 5% of his earnings is all, he could force the issue.
He could start the league.
He could start it. He could get a franchise.
He could probably own his own team at this point.
He could. But I'd like to put a plug in for him. He belongs to one of my country clubs I belong to,
Nice.
California Golf Club. He is a great kid. I don't mean a good kid. He's a great person. He gets it.
That's what a lot of people said, that both him and his wife, like how they appear and how they come off on social media, is legit how they are in real life.
Exactly. What you see is what you get. They're very kind. They're not full of themselves. They'll talk to anyone that's interested in talking with them. Under certain conditions. He comes to the club usually with his parents. He doesn't have a posse or any of that crap. He's a brilliant golfer. This guy, he could quit tomorrow, and if he took a year off, he could go on the tour.
Really?
I think so. He's a tremendous golfer. Tremendous. But, he doesn't play that much. He's just a good athlete. I heard he's great in ping pong, And he's a good kid. And
he's got a good work ethic too, right?
He has a great work ethic, and he doesn't fool around with any substances or anything. He's, my cousin says, who lives in Chicago, he says, he's too good to be true. There's a train wreck in there, because he used to say that about Tiger Woods. There isn't a train wreck with Curry. There isn't any. There never will be. Talking about Tiger Woods will someday be a member of our hall. Because we have a lot of great people that are out there that are still playing sports that will deserve to get in. And, of course, we have our Distinguished Service Awards, too.
Is Tiger from the Bay Area?
He went to Stanford.
Okay.
Well, for one quarter.
No, I think he went for more than that. I think McEnroe, who's a member of the board of our Hall of Fame, he went for like a cup of coffee. But nonetheless, he was a student there, and that qualifies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do you see the future of BASHOF?
Well, I think it's going to continue to get bigger and better. I'm hoping that when the new airport, they're doing a huge construction at the airport, where they're going to have this people mover outside of security. I don't know if you've seen it before.
No, I
It's a
haven't.
huge undertaking because to get from Terminal A now to Terminal 1 to Terminal 6 is, it's like a century, right? So they're going to have this.
I remember years ago I was flying from here, and I think I was going to like Europe or something, but they dropped me off at the wrong terminal,
Right,
and I had to run and rush to one of the, I think from Terminal 1 to 3, and it
right.
felt like forever.
Oh, I know. Especially when you're late.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
start
and that was
thinking
my
all these horrible
situation.
things.
I was
Like,
late.
I'll
Yeah.
be sleeping on the floor, kind of thing. And there's an area where the people mover makes absolutely a left because that's how the airport kind of grew up. And there's this big open space, and they're planning to give us that space for a museum. And I think, and it'll be, my hope is that it'll be much more expansive. I do want to talk to the NBA, film rights, and I'd love to get them to give me the rights to have more interactive participation between the fan or the customer or the.
Well, I think that's one thing that the NBA is doing really well. So going back to the problems that the MLB has is how strict they are on their content. And every professional sports organization is very strict with their content, but the NBA is a lot less strict. And you see them allowing other people to share their content.
Right.
More people are being exposed to NBA because of simple, just being able to afford the rights to just share content.
I've always felt the NBA has been the most advanced, I think, of all of the different leagues. I've always felt that they just seem to hit a home run every time.
Yeah, so I think if you wanted to do something interactive, I think the NBA would be on board, especially at SFO and BASHOF.
Well, I think every single league has a problem, a challenge, every single one of them. The challenge now at the NBA is, of course, these kids coming out of college. There's a big backlash that they want the kids to spend more time in college, and that's kind of a challenge, I think, to it. And the problem of salaries is just getting totally out of hand in the NBA. I mean, thank God for television. Because, I mean, how many more people can you stuff in those buildings, right? And how much more can you charge for a hot dog? I mean, the Giants, cripe, they should cut their prices in half, for the product, right? That's on the field.
I swear to God, garlic fries have gone up 25 cents
I'm
every
with
year
you.
the last
I'm with you.
5-10 years.
I had a margarita the other day, and there was no margarita in it. There was no alcohol.
Canned beer is like $12.
$12. I mean, it's just
Draft
crazy.
beer, 14.
Well, you can get that $20 craft beer too.
Yeah.
Oh, $20.
At
Yeah.
well, it's a 22-ounce craft beer at AT&T Park. So
Well, one of my investments, I was telling Sam what a hockey fanatic I am. I'm really sick almost about hockey. I mean, I watch summer hockey.
So I assume you're a Sharks fan then.
I'm a Sharks fan. Yeah, I was a Washington Caps fan, and everywhere I moved, everywhere I went, I was the fan of the local team. But I'm dying to Sharks fan, and I just love the sport. I just think the sport is phenomenal.
What do you love about it?
The speed of it, the math. I love the math. 3 attackers, 2 defensemen, 1 goalie. 1 point for a win, 2 points for a win, 1 for a tie. The speed. I like the players. I never met a hockey player I didn't like, right? I met some football players I didn't like, who I felt were just not interested in. See, one of the things about Tiger Woods, everybody says, gee, poor Tiger Woods. I don't agree so much. Tiger Woods was a tough customer all those years when he was winning. He treated the fans pretty shabbily. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw
Really?
it. Oh, yeah. Tiger never signed an autograph, never looked at anybody, wouldn't even look at anybody. I remember being at the Masters 5 or 6 years ago, and he came off down the stairs from the practice range, walked right towards me. He wasn't seeing anything. He was almost like he was a shark going through the water. He just never reacted to anybody, never recognized anybody, wouldn't play in the pro-ams. He does now. I think in a way, the Lord always seems to balance things out. I think he got his comeuppance. I don't think he ever should have gotten married. That was the idea of his agent. Well, you got to be married, for the right look.
That was planned?
I think that was planned. IMG. I hear it was planned.
Wow.
I hear it was planned, that they talked him into it. That guy didn't want to be married. I mean, I'll tell you what ruined Tiger Woods, his father. I knew his father. His father ruined him. He never had a childhood. That kid never had a childhood like a normal kid. There's a story, a buddy of mine.
He had him golfing at 2, right? 2
What?
or 3 years old? He had him golfing?
Oh, yeah, from 3.
Like practicing and
Yeah. And, when he won the boys and girls 13 and under, a friend of mine played him in the championship. And he beat my buddy 2 up. And these kids were 13, 12. And they all went back to the club, and all the fathers were with them, and they were having a great time. And they got into the bus. They all had to go. You had to go in a bus because they had to keep control. There weren't that many kids. It was the finals. And this buddy of mine's looking around. All the kids are having fun, running around like 13-year-old kids will do. And where's Tiger? He's in the back of the bus, the very last seat, away from everybody, and his father is taking him through every shot. When the kids are having fun, his father had him back there, and the kid said, "Hey, Tiger, come on." And he rolled his eyes like, what am I going to do? That's why Tiger Woods failed from the standpoint of getting into that trouble, because I think it was his father. He never really was allowed to have a childhood. Think about it. That was my observation of it.
I guess that's also common with a lot of top athletes too. I mean, they have to start really young. And maybe I'm wrong that it's common, but you hear that story quite a bit.
I know, but it is common. But there's a time to let the kid be a kid.
And then you got the really intense situations like the Todd Marinoviches of the world. Where
that's a perfect.
That's like
example.
an even worse version of what happened with Tiger.
Exactly. I think he's the worst example of it. And I think Tiger was an example. I think it was oppression, really, and obsessive behavior on his father's part. And
he probably shouldn't have cheated on his wife, though.
Yeah, that was a bad idea. But I mean, he was not only cheating, cheating in the plural. I mean, the rumor has it that he was sleeping with one of the waitresses in his wife's bed.
Yeah, he was sleeping with everyone.
Everybody. Yeah.
Everyone. Yeah, I mean, there's.
I heard anywhere from 95 to 200.
Is that right?
I heard so many different
numbers.
Like
95 to 200 women?
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
The numbers I heard, I'm sure someone probably put a 1,000 out there somewhere just to, really stir the pot. But the numbers I saw were ridiculous.
Well, I mean, you have Tiger, who's a pretty good-looking guy. He's an athlete. He's rich. He's got money, and you've got women, that like that. And
well, it's funny. I've this whole Me Too thing. Thank God I've never engaged in any of that. I never was accused, never will be, because I was single the whole time. I was basically running TV stations, and I had no interest in doing that. My father would tell me, "Do not poop where you eat," right? And I never was engaged in any of that. Never would. People would say to me, "Oh, you must have had a lot of that." None of it. I had no interest in that. Well, I'm too smart to do that. But
it just comes down to a matter of respecting everyone.
Well, true. But the point, when I lived in New York and ran Channel 5 in New York, I was a member of this really fancy health club called the Vertical Club. Everybody went there. And Cosby would go there every day because he was filming. That show was filmed in Brooklyn. The Cosby Show, when he played Dr. Huckabee, was not shot in L.A. It was shot in Brooklyn.
Really?
Oh, yeah, in the production center there. So he was at the Vertical Club every day in his temple, workout. He liked to work out. He's a great guy, by the way. Look, what he did was wrong, but I got to tell you, these women were all in. They were all in. They were lined up to leave with him. That's the truth. They knew what the game was. It was like the girl that went to Tyson's, hotel room. What did she think they were going to do? Practice algorithms? I mean, come on. At some point, as far as it was related, to Cosby, those girls really threw themselves at him. I mean,
yeah.
But doing what he did was wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure there were enough women that threw threw themselves at him at the time.
Well, how about
especially in the
Tiger? How
peak,
many
but
women threw
there were
themselves
also
at
a lot
Tiger?
of women that came out against him. I mean, he was
Oh,
drugging
absolutely. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that, it's tough because these guys the women go after these guys. I mean, I remember when Tiger played here in the big tournament. I forgot which one it was, and it was at Harding Park. And I remember
President's Cup.
Yeah, that was it. And I remember him going to his car. There had to be 12 or 13 young ladies standing, by the gate yelling at him, Tiger, Tiger, and all he had to do was point at one, and then, and they would have a drink, I guess. But, these guys are under a lot of pressure that way. I mean, it's there, it's available, he's on the road, it's tough. If you don't have the discipline, you're going to get in trouble. But my objection to him was the fact that he was very unfriendly to the crowd, to the fans. He wouldn't even tip his cap.
So speaking of golf, you have a golf tournament coming up, right?
Yep, we do, October 1st, Olympic Club. It's the best
I've never golfed at the
golf
Olympic
tournament.
Club before. It's a nice club?
Yes, it's beautiful. It's one of the top 10 golf courses in the world by far. I mean, it's this unbelievably well-run club, a phenomenal golf course, and we have it. This is, I think, our 23rd event, and I think it's the definitive golf event. We have a wonderful meal after, open bar, Olympic Club. We give great prizes away. We have 8 kids from the first tee come and play as our guests. We have a lot of celebrities there. It's really a great show. And if you
who's expected to show up this year?
Well, let's see. Plunkett, Jim Hines, Randy Chastain, Ann Warner Cribbs, Gene Washington, Plunkett. I'm crazy about Plunkett. He's a great guy.
So can anyone enter?
Anybody can play. Just go on to www.bashof.org, sign up, and come on over and play. We give really nice gifts out this year. Golf shoes. Get them right there. We have all kinds of sizes, every size you want. Raymond Chester, we're going to have to get a special size for him. We've ever seen his feet. But it's really a great event. Raises a lot of money, which is important to us to help our kids. And I urge everybody to come. It's a great day. Great weather.
And if people can't make the golf tournament, they can still donate to BASHOF.
Correct.
Through
they
the
can
website?
Make a donation, yes.
Okay. Well, Kevin, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Fun episode, and congratulations on retirement. And
thank you. I made
have fun with it. And think about podcasting or doing something.
Well, I'll probably do something. I think my wife will insist I get out of the house. But Sam, thank you very much, and thanks for the people that are listening and watching. I appreciate it. And the thing that separates this country from all other countries, there's one thing that we do to a greater extent than any other country by far, and that is charitable works. I mean, the amount of money given away in this country dwarfs the closest country, which I think is England. We give away billions and billions of dollars, and I think it separates us and makes us special and shows the sensitivity that people who've made it have for the people that didn't. And I think that's what BASHOF is, a small part of that. We're proud of it. And, hopefully this will go on for a very, very long time for our country, because I think it's important. Thank you.
Well said.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at markguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.